After the group trip, I found a $12,000 charge on my card. My sister said, "It was for the whole family. Don't ruin the vibe." I smiled and said, "Then you'll love what's coming." That's when the floorboards started shaking. I wish I could say I was shocked, but honestly, I wasn't. I mean, I was annoyed. Deeply, almost poetically annoyed, but shocked? Number. That would have required some degree of belief that this one time, my family wouldn't find a way to creatively screw me over and gaslight me into pretending it was a group hug. The charge showed up the Monday after we got back. I was sitting in my apartment, still in the hoodie I'd worn on the flight, trying to remember if my suitcase was still in the car or had somehow made it into the hallway. It hadn't, but my bank app had made it to the top of my notifications list. $12,087.42 from a group charge on a shared card I had very stupidly offered to put down for the Airbnb. And by Airbnb, I mean the basic beachfront rental I'd agreed to help book. Not, as it turns out, the luxury villa Tessa accidentally upgraded us to the day before the trip, along with a private chef couple's massages for her and Mark, I assume, and a 45-minute boat cruise because the timing was perfect. I blinked at the number a full 5 times before refreshing the page just in case my banking app had decided to experiment with psychological warfare. It had not. The money was gone. My account looked like it had just survived a heist and was trying to act normal, but the trauma was visible in every line item. I texted Tessa "Hey, just saw a $12,000 charge on the card. Was that supposed to be split?" She responded 3 minutes later. "Tessa, it was for the whole family. Don't ruin the vibe, right?" The vibe. God forbid I ruin the sacred energy of let's all pretend this is fine while Ellie foots the bill. I stared at my screen for a long time. Not because I didn't know what to say, but because I knew exactly what to say. And it was either going to be the calmest sentence I've ever typed, or the kind of message that got screenshotted and added to family group chats with the caption, "She's being weird again." So I went with calm me. "Then you'll love what's coming." She didn't respond. She probably assumed I was being sarcastic, which, to be fair, I usually am, but not this time. I closed the app, took a slow sip of cold coffee, and opened a spreadsheet. I had a name in mind before I'd even typed the first line. Expenses. Tessa won't pay back again. X. L. SX. By the time I finished the first tab, I'd added 5 more columns. I wasn't just going to ruin the vibe. I was going to end the whole playlist. Now, in case you think I'm overreacting or that maybe this was a one-time thing, I'd like to offer a short and deeply depressing montage of moments from my financial life over the last 10 years. Age 23, Tessa borrows $500 to cover an emergency vet bill. The pet, a goldfish. The emergency? She forgot to feed it. The $500 never returned. Age 26, she borrows my car for 2 hours. Comes back 3 days later with a cracked bumper and a new boyfriend. Age 29, I co-sign a lease for her because she can't afford the deposit. She gets evicted for throwing an engagement party that included a live DJ and a smoke machine in a 1-bedroom. So no, this wasn't new. It was just bigger, more dramatic, and frankly more expensive than usual. After the vacation, the group chat stayed lively for exactly 3 days. Tessa sent pictures of sunsets and cocktails with captions like #FamilyVibes and best trip ever. Everyone responded with heart emojis and fire gifs. No one mentioned the money. I stayed quiet, not because I didn't care. I deeply cared, but I'd learned something important over the years. If you react too fast, you become the problem. If you wait just long enough, you become the story. On Thursday, Tessa called. "Hey, big sis," she chirped like she hadn't just digitally mugged me 4 days earlier. "Hey," I said flatly. "So, about the card. I know it looks like a lot, but it all balanced out, right? You got the points?" Yes, the frequent flyer points. A whole 900 of them. Enough to buy half a soda at the airport. You charge 12 grand, I said. She sighed. Sighed like I was the one who was being difficult. We all benefited. Don't be weird. You're doing fine. You have that job. That's like really stable or whatever. I closed my eyes. I could practically hear her flipping her hair through the phone. I work in it, I said. Not as a human ATM. She laughed. You're so dramatic. Anyway, I got to run. We're looking at places in Tahoe for Labor Day. Talk soon. She hung up before I could answer. I stared at my wall for a solid 10 minutes after that call, listening to the faint buzz of my fridge and wondering if it would be cheaper to just let it devour me than deal with another family trip. Then I opened a folder on my desktop called Receipts. I hadn't looked at it in a while, but it was there. Years of emails, Venmo screenshots, canceled checks. I wasn't saving them to be petty. I was saving them because I knew deep down this day would come. I had every bill I ever covered. Every time someone said, "Can you spot me just for now?" and then vanished like a magician with my money. That night, I Googled lawyers who specialized in small claims and fraud, and by Friday, I had a meeting booked with someone named Mr. Halpern, who sounded exactly like the type of man who wouldn't flinch if someone called him a buzzkill at brunch. Saturday afternoon, I drove to my parents' house for what was now being called a casual family get-together. Translation: Tessa had something to announce and needed a warm, captive audience. I parked down the street, took a deep breath, and pulled the folder out of my bag. Inside was a copy of every receipt, every charge, and a note from Mr. Halpern, who, to my delight, had agreed to stop by personally. I knocked once, and Tessa opened the door, wearing a flowy white dress and the expression of someone who'd just been told she was the moment. "Ellie!" she squealed, hugging me like I hadn't been silently plotting legal action for a week. "Come in! We're just getting started." She led me into the living room where Mark was holding a tray of mimosas, like a man who still thought this was going to end well for him. I smiled politely, dropped my bag by the coat rack, and sat down on the edge of the couch. Tessa raised her glass. "So happy we're all here." "Seriously, this is what family's all about." I nodded once. "Then you'll love what's coming." And that's when the floorboards started shaking. The floorboards had started shaking. Not from some ghostly force or explosive karmic justice, unfortunately. Just someone heavy walking up the steps. Slow, deliberate footsteps that made the whole house vibrate like it knew something was about to go very, very wrong. Tessa didn't seem to notice. She was too busy raising her glass and soaking in the moment like she'd just been crowned queen of Sunday brunch. I turned my head slightly toward the door and waited. That's all I had to do. Just wait. But we're not there yet. Let's rewind for a second, because the thing about people like Tessa is they don't become monsters overnight. It's a long game, a slow, exhausting erosion of boundaries wrapped in charm, and just enough. But we're family guilt to keep you from blowing everything up too soon. You know those strong older sibling memes? The ones where someone is photoshopped holding the world together while everyone else sleeps peacefully. That was me. Except no one made a meme. I just quietly paid bills I didn't owe and smiled through gritted teeth while everyone else forgot their wallets for the 5th meal in a row. It started small. When I was 19, Tessa asked me to buy her concert tickets because she couldn't figure out the checkout page and promised she'd Venmo me immediately. She never did, but she did post a photo with the caption, "Front row manifested this." By 21, she had convinced our parents that her spring break trip to Cancun was an educational, cultural experience. Somehow, I was the one who loaned her the spending money because you've got that job now, right? That job. I was working at a phone store and eating instant ramen 5 nights a week, and every year it escalated. By 25, she'd asked me to co-sign her car loan. When I hesitated, Mom pulled me aside and said, "She's your sister, Ellie. Families help each other," which in our family really meant you help, she spends. Tessa didn't thank me. She took a selfie with the keys, tagged it #selfmade, and left me on read. You might be wondering, where were the parents in all of this? Let me paint a quick picture. My dad is the human equivalent of background noise. He spends most of his days scrolling through sports forums and emerging only to say things like "don't start drama" or "this again." My mom, on the other hand, is a master of the guilt smile. You know, the one it says, "I'm not mad, just disappointed, but also I expect you to pay for this." She doesn't yell. She just sighs a lot and then says things like, "Tessa has a lot on her plate right now. You don't understand what it's like to be the youngest. You're doing well. Why can't you just be generous?" What they meant was, "You're responsible. Therefore, you owe us everything." So, when the group trip came up, I already knew how it would go. Tessa messaged me 2 months before. "Tessa, family trip idea. Airbnb by the coast. Everyone splits it. You in?" What I should have said? "Only if we all prepay and sign a blood oath." What I actually said? "Sure, because I'm a coward." Or was. I assumed splitting meant what normal people mean. Divide costs evenly and pay before the trip. But Tessa had a different vision. Turns out she upgraded the Airbnb without telling anyone. Booked a chef, booked a private cruise, added extras that made no sense for a family trip, like monogrammed robes and a personal beach mixologist. I still don't know what that means. And she put it all on my card because I was already on the booking. And when I found out it was for the whole family, don't ruin the vibe. Of course, back in the present, I was still sitting on that couch, trying not to choke on the scent of overpriced candle wax and Tessa's delusion. The footsteps were louder now. Mark looked toward the door, frowning slightly. He didn't know what was happening, but he could smell a shift in the air. I could tell. That was fine. I wasn't in a rush. I pulled the folder from my bag and held it in my lap. Thick stack of papers neatly tabbed, receipts, screenshots, a notarized letter from Mr. Halpern, and a breakdown of every expense tied to my card since 2017. I had charts. Tessa was still talking. She'd moved on to a story about how someone literally begged her to become an influencer. "I mean, it's exhausting being this magnetic," she said, flipping her hair like she was being filmed. Mark chuckled and offered me a mimosa. I declined. I'd need my brain fully online for what was coming. That's when Mom shuffled in from the kitchen, holding a plate of avocado toast like it was a peace offering. "You're quiet, sweetheart," she said gently. "Everything okay?" I looked at her. Really looked? There was no awareness, no recognition that anything had gone wrong, no apology. "No, I heard about the charge." "Let's talk." Just vibes and brunch and silence. "I'm fine," I said. "Just waiting for what?" she asked. I didn't get to answer because the door creaked open and someone stepped inside. He was tall, mid-60s, gray hair, neatly dressed, a black leather satchel over one shoulder. Tessa blinked. "Ah, hi. Can we help you?" He adjusted his glasses. Calm, professional. The kind of calm that means he doesn't need to raise his voice to destroy you. "I'm looking for Tessa Morgan," he said. She smiled automatically. "That's me." He opened his satchel, pulled out a single envelope, and handed it to her. "You've been served," he said. The room froze like someone had just yanked the battery out of the Bluetooth speaker midong. Tessa didn't move. Mark leaned forward, confused. Mom stood in the doorway, toast still in hand. Dad from the hallway muttered, "What's all this?" I stood up slowly and straightened my jacket. No yelling, no drama, just facts. But this wasn't the end. Not even close. Because what Tessa hadn't realized yet, what no one had realized, was that the envelope in her hand, that was just the beginning. For someone who never stopped talking, it was impressive how silent Tessa got. She stared at the envelope like it might bite her. Her fingers didn't move. Her face didn't change. It was the quietest I'd ever seen her, like the part of her brain that usually generated spin, deflection, and hashtags had just short-circuited. Mark leaned toward her and whispered something, but she didn't respond. He reached for the envelope like he might open it himself. She jerked it away. Good. Mr. Halpern, ever the professional, gave a polite nod and turned to me. If you need anything else, you have my number. I do, I said. Thank you. He left the same way he came in, calm, unbothered, as if he had 6 more brunches to ruin before lunch. The silence that followed was awkward, to put it lightly, like someone had hit pause on a sitcom at exactly the wrong moment. Except no one was laughing, just Tessa, frozen with a legal envelope in her hands, and the rest of the family looking like they'd walked into the middle of a play with no script. What is this? Mom asked finally, her voice low but sharp. Tessa didn't answer. Mark turned to me. What the hell, Ellie? I tilted my head. Are you confused or just hoping I am? Mark blinked. You brought a lawyer to brunch. I didn't bring him, I said. He brought the law. There's a difference. Tessa finally found her voice barely. This is ridiculous, she snapped. You're suing your own sister? I shrugged. Not suing, just pursuing repayment formally, legally, since all other methods seem to be incompatible with your lifestyle. I told you I'd pay you back, she shouted. Really? When I pulled out my phone because I've got our last 30 messages, and not a single one includes an apology, a payment, or even a Venmo request. Unless I missed the part where don't ruin the vibe counts as financial restitution. Dad spoke up from behind his newspaper like he just remembered he had a daughter. Ellie, come on. This is family. That line, I said, has been used to excuse everything from unpaid rent to stolen identity. So, unless you're planning to say something original, maybe just sit this one out. His mouth opened, then closed. Back to the sports section. Mom stepped forward, placing her hands on the table like a disappointed guidance counselor. You could have talked to us first. I did, I said. For years. I meant recently. You mean after the $12,000 unauthorized charge? I said. Or after the 5 years of being treated like an unlimited debit card with a Wi-Fi connection. Her lips pressed together. No comeback. Just that tight, polite fury she wore whenever the truth made her look bad. I can't believe this, Tessa muttered. This is actually happening. You know what's wild? I said. Neither can I. She looked up. Her eyes were glossy now, not from sadness, but from the shock of someone not backing down. You're blowing this way out of proportion. No, I said, sliding the second copy of the spreadsheet across the table. I'm finally giving this the proportion it deserves. She didn't touch it. Mark did. He flipped through the pages slowly, each one labeled dated, color-coded, dinner charges, rental cars, deposits, the Airbnb. Every dollar linked back to a date, a message, a screenshot. This is detailed, he said quietly. I work in IT, I said. If I can recover files from a corrupted drive, I can certainly track down a missing $12,000. I didn't know it would be that much, Tessa muttered. Then maybe don't put the entire resort economy of Santa Barbara on someone else's card. Mark put the spreadsheet down and cleared his throat. Okay, look. Maybe we went overboard. I said. He paused. Fine, he said. Tessa went overboard, but can't we settle this quietly, like outside of court? I nodded slowly. Sure. Pay me back in full. Plus legal fees, plus interest. He blinked. Are you serious? As a heart attack. Come on. That's not reasonable. I stood up. Neither was putting a $2,000 spa day on my credit card because you wanted matching robes for a sunset photo. Tessa made a sound. Half gasp, half rage burst. "This is humiliating," she hissed. "Correct," I said. "That's what happens when you make someone the villain in private and they decide to play the hero in public." "You've always hated me," she said suddenly. "That's what this is really about." I laughed. I couldn't help it. "No, Tessa. I've always pitied you. There's a difference." She stood up too, fists clenched. "You think you're better than me?" "No," I said. "I think I'm done letting you convince me I'm worse." And with that, I turned to go. "Ellie!" Mom called out. "Please don't do this!" I looked back. I already did. The door clicked shut behind me. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel guilty. Not the polite kind of guilt that hangs in your throat after every family gathering. Not the quiet ache in your chest when someone says, "You've always been the strong one." Not the half-whispered, "Can you help just this once?" That turns into a routine. No guilt, just air. I walked to my car in silence, ignoring the buzzing in my pocket. Texts, no doubt. Apologies shaped like accusations, confused anger, maybe even a voice message or two that started soft and ended with, "I can't believe you'd do this to us." I didn't check. Instead, I drove. No destination in mind, just movement, just distance. My phone buzzed again and again, but I let it. I let the sound blend into the background like it had all my life. Eventually, I pulled over at a small park, empty, quiet. I sat under a tree and just existed. Breathe in, breathe out. Somewhere Tessa was probably pacing and yelling. Mark was Googling legal terms. My parents were pretending they hadn't seen this coming, even though they absolutely had. And me? I was calm. But I wasn't done. Not yet. 3 weeks. That's how long it took before the silence started to shift into noise. At first, there was nothing. Just the expected fallout, blocked numbers, frozen smiles in group chats, family group texts quietly dying. No one said my name, but you could feel it hanging there like a coffee stain no one wanted to scrub. Then the damage control began. Tessa sent a clarification email to the family, claiming the whole thing had been a miscommunication. She said I'd offered to pay and then changed my mind, and that I'd blown things out of proportion by bringing in a lawyer. She didn't mention the $12,000 charge or the years of unacknowledged support, just the narrative she could twist into a victim role. Classic Tessa. Mark tried a different route. He emailed my lawyer with an offer. He'd pay back 1/3 of the money if I dropped everything. We declined. Mr. Halpern, to his credit, handled it with the kind of dignity I will never master. He simply replied, "We're not interested in partial accountability." A few days later, Tessa posted a vague Instagram story, a close-up selfie, puffy eyes, caption, "Some people will betray you the second you stop giving." Cue the sad playlist, and 3 passive-aggressive Bible verses. I didn't respond. What was I going to say? Actually, I betrayed you by enforcing a boundary. Sorry, I didn't Venmo the emotional labor tax you think I owe you for being the fun one. No, I was done playing their PR game. Instead, I focused on my life, which for the first time in years felt like it actually belonged to me. I got a raise at work. Apparently, showing up not emotionally hollowed out by family drama makes you better at your job. Who knew? I started sleeping better. Ate meals that weren't delivered in a panic between passive-aggressive phone calls. I moved into a new apartment, one with no shared walls and no risk of surprise visits. I changed my number, updated my emergency contacts, put Aunt Claire at the top of the list. She was the only one who'd reached out after everything happened. She sent a card, handwritten, short and simple. "You did the right thing. I wish I'd done it years ago." "Claire!" I cried when I read it. Not because it was sad, but because it was the first time someone in the family acknowledged what it had cost me to finally say no. 2 months after the brunch incident, I got a letter in the mail. No return address, but I recognized the handwriting. Inside was a check for $1,000 and a note asterisk she left me. Said I wasn't loyal enough to her during the whole thing. I should have stopped her sooner. I know this doesn't fix it, but it's a start. Mark asterisk. I didn't reply, but I didn't tear it up either. It was the first money I'd ever gotten back. The civil suit didn't need a courtroom. Her lawyer folded after we refused to settle. She's paying it back now, every cent. Not because she wanted to, but because she had no choice left. As for Tessa, last I heard, her account had been flagged for suspicious activity. Not from me, just karma doing its thing. She lost a brand deal with a travel agency after someone forwarded them screenshots of the legal filing. She claimed defamation. The agency quietly cut ties. The whispers in the family haven't stopped. Some blame me, some blame her, some pretend it never happened. That's fine. Let them squirm in the silence, because for the first time in my life, I'm not stuck in it. A few weeks ago, I was at a small neighborhood cafe sipping coffee, reading, and minding my own business when someone I went to high school with walked in. They recognized me. We chatted for a minute, catching up. Then they lowered their voice and said, "Hey, I heard what happened with your sister." That's wild. I braced myself for judgment, but instead they just nodded and added, "Good for you." Most people never get out. I didn't know what to say, just smiled. But it stuck with me. You know what no one tells you? Peace is weird at first. You expect it to feel like fireworks, a big celebration, a victory parade with people cheering your name, but it's not. It's quiet. It's eating dinner without a single text asking for help. It's not flinching when the phone buzzes. It's walking past the bank app on your phone and not breaking into a cold sweat. It's silence and realizing that silence isn't empty. It's space, room for your own voice, your own thoughts, your own life, and that's worth more than anything they ever took. I still think about it sometimes. That moment, the envelope, the look on Tessa's face when someone finally told her no and backed it up with paperwork. Part of me wishes it didn't have to go that far, that someone else would have stepped in sooner, that maybe, just maybe, my parents would have said, "This isn't okay," instead of, "Can't we just move on?" But another part of me knows if I hadn't done it then, I never would have done it at all. If I hadn't made a scene, I'd still be paying for hers. Sometimes I still wonder if I went too far. Should I have tried one more conversation? Another chance to explain how much it hurt? Another round of quiet disappointment that no one heard me, or maybe, just maybe, this was the only way they'd ever listen. What do you think? Did I go too far, or was I finally just setting a boundary they couldn't ignore? Let me know in the comments. I want to hear what you'd have done. And if you made it to the end of this story, don't forget to subscribe for more just like this. Because sometimes the only way to stop being the family's doormat is to close the door for...
While I was traveling for work, my 14-year-old daughter woke up to a note from my parents. "Pack your things and move out. We need to make space for your cousin. You're not welcome." 3 hours later, I handed them this. My parents went pale. Wait, what? How? Now, let me be clear about something. I didn't dump my kid on my parents. We had been living there for 3 years, and I was gone for a short work trip we had agreed to in advance. Ella is 14, independent, easy. All they had to do was, well, not kick her out. The morning after I left, my phone rang at 7:15. It was Ella. And Ella doesn't call me at 7:15. If she's awake at 7:15, it's usually to stare at the ceiling and hate school, not to call her mother. I picked up. And the second I saw her, I knew something was wrong. Red eyes, puffy face. She looked like she was trying to hold it together. So I kept my voice calm. You know that voice you put on as a parent? Like, if you sound steady, maybe everything will be steady. Hey, sweetheart, I said, what happened? She didn't even answer straight away. She swallowed, looked down, then lifted this piece of paper with both hands. I got a note, she said. A note from who? She just stared at it, like she couldn't believe it was real. Grandma and Grandpa, she said. My parents. My brain was trying to make this make sense. What does the note say? I asked. Ella took a breath, like she was about to step onto a stage, and she read it. Pack your things and move out. We need to make space for your cousin. You're not welcome. That was it. No, please, no, let's talk, no, we're sorry, just move out and you're not welcome. Written to a 14-year-old. I actually sat there for a second, staring at my screen, trying to decide if I've misheard. Like, maybe the note said, pack your things and move out. We need to make space for your cousin. We love you. It did not. Ella, I said, keeping my voice low. Did you talk to them? She shook her head. No, I didn't go out. I don't want to see them. Her voice cracked on the last word, and she blinked fast. Like if she blinks the wrong way, she would start sobbing again. That hurt more than the note. Because she wasn't just upset about being told to leave. She was hurt because these are her grandparents, people she thought were safe. Okay, I said, listen to me. You did nothing wrong, nothing. Do you hear me? She nodded, but she still looked like she was holding herself together with tape. Why would they do that? She whispered. I thought they liked me. I took a slow breath, because if I let my anger loose on camera with my child watching, I would scare her, and I needed her to feel safe. I'm going to call them, I said, right now. Ella's eyes widened. Mom, please. Stay right there, I said. I will handle it. Then I ended the call and called my mother. She answered like I was calling to ask what she wanted for dinner. Hello. Mom, I said, did you leave Ella a note telling her to, move out? There was a pause. Not a confused pause, a pause like she was deciding how much to admit. Yes, she said finally. Right. What is going on? We need the room, she said. The room for what? For Nicole, obviously, my mother said. Like, that explained everything. Nicole needs to move in. Nicole and Layla. Nicole is my sister, and Layla is her 7-year-old daughter. I was stunned. Since when? I asked. She had an emergency, my mother said. What emergency? She had a fight with Justin, my mother said, and she needs space. Justin is Nicole's husband, Layla's father. And you decided the solution was to throw my daughter out. I mean, where is she supposed to go? My mother sounded irritated now, like I was the one making it difficult. She can go to her father, she said. Ryan, my ex. My parents knew exactly how uninvolved he was. They knew that Ella wouldn't want to stay with him. They knew it would upset her. They knew it would actually scare her. And my mother said it like she was suggesting a fun weekend activity. I could feel my hands shaking. You're telling my child she isn't welcome, I said, because Nicole wants the room, and your solution is to send her to Ryan. My mother snapped. Alison, don't make this into a big drama. Then she added, like she has been saving it up, and she has been rude. She doesn't listen. I asked her to do dishes, and she loaded the dishwasher completely wrong. Cups full of water, bowls facing the wrong way, the pan still greasy. I had to redo the whole thing. I blinked. That's what it is, I said. A dishwasher. It's the attitude, my mother said quickly. And we need the room. Mom, I said, Ella cooks for herself. She cleans up. Even if she loaded the dishwasher wrong, she's 14. You correct her. You don't write her a note telling her that she's not welcome. My mother's voice went cold. Alison, she said, just come home and deal with it. I stared at the wall of the hotel room, the neutral carpet, the little bottle of hand soap that probably cost a fortune, and something inside me just went very quiet. Fine, I said. I'm coming home. My mother sighed, like I was finally being reasonable. Good, she said. I ended the call before I said what I really wanted to say. Then I called my manager, said, family emergency, threw my stuff in the suitcase and left. I drove 2 hours with my jaw clenched the entire time. And when I pulled into my parents' driveway, I didn't feel nervous. I felt calm in a way that usually means you're about to do something you can't undo. I walked into the house. My mother looked at me and actually smiled. Oh, she said, see, that wasn't so difficult. I don't know why you made such a scene. Like, I had come back early from a spa weekend. My dad stood behind her with his arms crossed. And from the living room, I heard Nicole laughing. They didn't know it yet, but an hour later, I was about to hand them something, and their lives would never be the same again. But we will come to that. Now, this part matters, because if you only hear about the note, you might think my parents just snapped. They did not snap. This was a pattern. The note was just the loudest version of it. Nicole and I grew up in the same house, with the same parents, but it honestly felt like two completely different childhoods. Nicole cried. My parents rushed in like there was a fire. I cried. I got told to stop making a scene. Nicole needed something. It was urgent. I needed something. It was figure it out. Then I turned 18. My parents didn't kick me out aggressively. It was more like they couldn't wait for me to go. You're an adult now, they said. Time to stand on your own. So I did. I worked, I saved, and I tried to build a life. Nicole went to college later, and suddenly my parents had endless energy for parenting again. They were involved, they were supportive, they helped her with everything, like they enjoyed it. And I remember thinking, oh, so they have this in them, just not for me. Then I married Ryan. I'm not going to get into that all here. Let's just say 3 years ago I had to leave him in a hurry. I had Ella with me and I had nowhere else to go. So I asked my parents if I could stay with them. My parents acted like I had asked for a mansion. We don't have space, my mum said. My dad did that long sigh thing, like I was the one causing problem. When I tried to explain why I needed to leave, my mum looked at me like she didn't believe me. You were with him for 12 years, she said, so why now? Then she said, if it was really that bad, you would have left him earlier. That one hit. Because I wasn't asking for a debate. I was asking for my parents to be, well, my parents. In the end, they agreed. But it came with conditions. They owed the house outright, no mortgage. But at some point, they had taken equity out on it, a loan against the house. And once I moved in, suddenly I had to contribute. Half the equity payment, utilities, groceries, all of it. Plus, I became the default house helper. Deep cleans, scrubbing, organizing. My mom loves deep cleans. The kind that never ends. The kind where you finish one room and she points to the other like, you have signed up for a never-ending cleaning torment. And she would say the same line every time. You're an adult living with your parents. You have to compensate. Nicole, meanwhile, could have one normal argument with Justin and my parents will roll out the red carpet. This happened before I even left Ryan. Nicole had a fight with Justin, nothing dangerous, just a relationship fight. She showed up with a bag. My parents acted like she was arriving for a holiday. Fresh sheets, snacks, sympathy, no lectures, no bills. Nicole never paid. Nicole never deep cleaned the attic. Nicole never had to compensate. She just existed and they were happy about it. Nicole and Justin had Layla, and the favorism carried right down to the next generation. Layla was the favorite granddaughter. Ella was just tolerated. Ella felt it. Kids always feel it. Now, here's the part I didn't know until recently. 2 weeks ago, before the note, my mom asked me to do a deep clean in the attic because, of course, she did. So I went up there with a trash bag and a box and my usual attitude of, if I do this, maybe everyone stays calm. I found old photos, other stuff, and a folder buried under papers. I opened it because I assumed it was some tax stuff or some old house documents, something boring, and it was not boring. I saw my grandmother's legal name on top. My grandmother has died 10 years ago. I always believed she left the house to my parents. That was the story, but the documents I held in my hand said something else. They said there was a trust. They said beneficiary. They said Ella. They said that my daughter Ella was the sole beneficiary. I remember standing there in the attic, dusty and frozen, thinking, no, that can't be right. That has to mean something else. So I did what I do when something feels too big to hold. I took pictures. I put the papers back. I went downstairs and I just acted normal. Then I called the lawyer. Her name was Miss Collins. She listened, she asked questions, she didn't act shocked, she acted focused, and she said, we need to request everything. All paperwork, all accounting, everything they did as trustees. She drafted a letter for me, a formal demand, and I didn't send it. I didn't give it to my parents because they're my parents. And I needed time to wrap my head around the fact that they never told me, not once, not in 10 years. Then they handed my child a note that said, you're not welcome. And my, maybe I will handle this gently time was over. Back at my parents' house, my mom was still acting like I was being dramatic. My dad was still doing the arm cross thing. Nicole was still in the living room, loud and cheerful, like we were not in the middle of a crisis. I walked straight past them and went to Ella's room. Ella opened the door immediately, like she had been listening. Her face fell when she saw me, and then she tried to pull herself together, because she always does that. Mom, she whispered, are they really making me leave? No, I said, we are leaving together, right now. Her shoulders shook with relief and fear at the same time. Then she said the thing that broke me. They said I could go to Dad. I felt my chest go tight. I know, I said. And you're not going, I promise. Ella nodded, hard. Her eyes filled again. Why don't... Ella nodded, hard. Her eyes filled up again. Why don't they want me? She asked. I pulled her into a hug. I don't know, I said. But it has nothing to do with you. I helped her pack essentials. Just what she needed to feel okay. Clothes, charger, toiletries, her favorite hoodie, the things you grab when your life turns into a suitcase. Then I stood up, took a breath, and walked back into the hallway. My mum looked at the bag in Ella's hand and rolled her eyes. Oh, for goodness sake, she said, stop turning that into production. I didn't argue. I reached into my own bag and pulled out an envelope. It was a letter from Miss Collins. And then it was the letter Miss Collins had prepared, the ones I had been too hesitant to use. I held it out to my dad. This is from my lawyer, I said. My dad's face changed immediately, like the word lawyer tasted bad. Your lawyer, he repeated. Yes, I said, Miss Collins. My mum stepped forward, fast. What is that? She demanded. It's a formal request, I said, for the trust paperwork, the accounting, everything. Nicole appeared in the hallway, phone in hand, annoyed. What is going on now? She snapped. I looked at her. This was the first time she looked even slightly nervous. My dad opened the envelope. He scanned the first page, and the colour drained from his face so quickly it was almost impressive. My mum snatched it from him and read. She froze. Nicole leaned in. What is it? She said. Sharper now. My mum didn't answer. Nicole grabbed the pages and read them to herself. Her face went pale. Wait, she said, staring at the papers, then at me. What? Then quietly, like she genuinely could not understand how the ground under her feet had shifted. How? I didn't explain. Not there, not in front of my child, because Ella was behind me with her bag, watching the adults in her life fall apart. I took Ella's hand. "We are leaving," I said. My mom's voice jumped up into shouting. My dad started yelling too. Nicole stood there, still pale, like someone had unplugged her. And I walked out of that house with my daughter 3 hours after that note. That day, we stayed with my friend Erica. Erica's been in my life for a long time. She's safe. Ella knows her. She didn't grill us. She just let us come in, breathe, and get through the night. My phone did not stop buzzing. Mom, Dad, Nicole, Mom again, Dad again. They had never cared about contacting me before this much. So that evening I called Miss Collins, the lawyer I had spoken to after I found those trust papers. I told her everything. She said, "Send me a photo of the note right now." I did. There was a pause while she read it. Then she said, "Okay, we are filing. First thing, emergency." I said, "How fast can this move?" She said, "Fast enough to get a temporary order." 3 days later, we were in court. It was exactly as unpleasant as you would expect. Cold room, hard benches, everyone pretending they're calm while trying to destroy each other politely. Ella sat next to me in her hoodie, shoulders tied. My parents sat across the room like they were the injured party. Nicole sat behind them. She looked tense. Not guilty, not sorry, just tense. Like she couldn't believe her temporary stay had turned into a legal reality. When my parents spoke, they were all over the place. First, my mom said, "Of course Alison knew about the trust. She's pretending." Then my dad said, "We never kicked anyone out. They chose to leave." Then my mom said, "She was difficult. She wasn't cleaning up properly. That's why we told her to go." Ella went still. Not shocked exactly, more like embarrassed. Like she was doing a 14-year-old math of, "Wait, this is really what they're using against me?" I felt her hand tighten around mine. Miss Collins stood up and handed the judge the note. The actual note? The one that said, "You're not welcome"? The judge read it silently. And you could feel the air change. Like the room itself decided this note was not normal. It was not a normal family disagreement. The judge looked at Ella. Ella shrunk back a little. Then she straightened it because she had that in her, that stubborn bravery. "Do you feel safe living with them?" the judge asked. Ella's voice was small but clear. "No." My mom made a sound of annoyance, like Ella was being dramatic. Ella flinched. The judge noticed. And I saw it, that moment when someone in authority actually sees the dynamic, not just the paperwork. Ms. Collins spoke calmly. The beneficiary is a minor. She said, "She needs stable housing. The trustees' actions have been hostile and destabilizing. We are asking for temporary relief so the child can live in their home without intimidation." My dad snapped. "That is our house." The judge looked at him. "From what I'm seeing today," the judge said, "this property is held in a trust, and the sole beneficiary is the child." He tapped the papers in front of him. "You have been acting like it's your personal home, but you are here as trustees. That's different." My parents' faces tightened. My mom leaned forward. "This is outrageous," she said. "We lived there, and you wrote a note telling a 14-year-old she wasn't welcome in that same house," the judge said, holding up the paper. "You tried to force her out while her mother was away. That's not a safe or stable situation for a minor." My mom opened her mouth, closed it. Then the judge said the words I didn't realize I had been holding my breath for. "This is a temporary order, not a final ruling on the whole trust case, but the house situation has to be stabilized immediately." He looked directly at my parents. "You will vacate the house within 7 days. That gives you time to move what you need, and it gets the child back into safe housing. If you believe you have legal arguments to make long terms, you can make them through the process. But right now, the priority is the minor." My mom's face went white. My dad half stood up like he was going to argue with gravity. "You can't do that," he said. The judge didn't blink. "I can," he said, "and I am. You have 7 days." We walked out of that court, and I felt Ella's hand squeeze mine again. Not because she was happy. She wasn't happy because she finally felt like someone believed her. My parents moved out fast. Not gracefully, not quietly, but fast. Nicole and Layla never moved in, because once a judge says no, not like this, the whole plan falls apart. And honestly, Nicole's emergency didn't even last. She was furious, swearing she was done with Justin forever. Then a day later, they were like fine again. Apparently, the big crisis was something like him not backing her up in a small argument, or not saying the right thing fast enough. Normal couple stuff. Just treated like a national emergency. And that's when the story started. Not the legal ones, the social ones. Because when my parents couldn't control the house anymore, they tried to control the narrative. Flying monkeys showed up almost immediately. People I barely speak to, relatives I see once in a blue moon, they would call and start with, "I'm just worried." In that tone, that means I already picked a side. Your parents are devastated." At first, I stayed quiet because I didn't want it to turn into a public show. Then the rumors hit Ella. That was the line. One afternoon, she came home from school, shut her bedroom door, and didn't come out. I knocked and went in. She was sitting on her bed, staring at the wall, face tight, like she has been holding tears in her throat. "What happened?" I asked. She swallowed. "People were talking," she said. "Who?" "Kids," she said. "And their moms. Someone said you kicked Grandma and Grandpa out. Someone said you're trying to steal their house. And someone said I caused it." Her voice wobbled. "I don't want to go to school anymore," she whispered. I sat down beside her. "Okay," I said. "You don't have to go tomorrow." She looked at me like she expected me to argue. Then she whispered, "I'm sorry." I put my hand on her shoulders. "No," I said. "No, this is not your fault. This is adults behaving badly." That night, I did 2 things. First, I called the school and removed my parents from every contact list and permission form, every emergency detail, everything. Second, I sat down at the table, opened my banking app, and stopped paying everything I had been paying before. The equity payment, utilities, anything connected to them. Click, done. Click, done. It wasn't petty, it was reality. If you throw my child out, you do not get my money. Then I went to bed and stared at the ceiling and tried not to cry. Because even when your parents are wrong, it still hurts to admit they will never be what you needed. The smear campaign got louder, so I did something I never wanted to do. I told the truth, publicly, but only the part that mattered. I posted a short statement, not long run, no insults. I said my parents wrote my 14-year-old daughter a note telling her to move out while I was away, at work. And I posted a photo of that note. That was it. People read it, and suddenly the Alison the Cruel Daughter story got very quiet. Because it's hard to defend a note that says you're not welcome to a child. Some of the same people who had judged me messaged me privately to apologize. Some didn't. That's fine. From what I heard, my parents stayed with long-term friends after they moved out. Those friends believed my parents at first. Then they saw the note. And that was the end of it. They told my parents to leave. The legal process continued in the background. Paperwork, hearings, back and forth. I won't bore you with the details, because half of it is just adults paying other adults to write angry letters. But I will tell you this. My parents tried everything. They tried denying, they tried blaming, they tried saying my grandmother wasn't in her right mind. They tried saying they were just trying to make things fair between granddaughters. They tried pretending it was all for Ella's benefit, which was especially bold considering they had literally tried to kick her out. Months into it, after another round of legal updates, there was a knock on the door. I opened it, and there they were, Mum and Dad, standing on the porch like they were visiting for coffee. My mum's face had this new expression she has never used in me before. Soft, sad, pleading. "Alison," she said, "we made a mistake." My dad nodded, stiffly. "We love you." My mum said quickly, "We love Ella. We are family. Please, can we not do this? Can we not make it worse?" "Worse?" I repeated. My mum's eyes flicked past me like she wanted to see inside the house. "You have to understand," she said. "We have 2 daughters, 2 granddaughters. Your grandmother left everything to Ella. That wasn't fair." There it was again. Fair. My dad added, "We just wanted it equal." I stared at them and felt something surprising. Not rage, just clarity. "Equal?" I said softly. "When was anything ever equal?" My mum opened her mouth. I didn't let her. "You had 10 years, I said. 10 years to tell me. 10 years to do the right thing." My mum's eyes filled with tears. I don't know if they were real or not. I didn't have the energy to judge. "I found out 2 weeks before the note," I said. My mum blinked. "What?" "I found the documents," I said, 2 weeks before you told my child to pack her things." My dad's jaw tightened. "And do you know what I did?" I said. "Nothing. I didn't blow up your life. I didn't come at you screaming. I went to a lawyer and I sat with it because you are my parents and I didn't want to believe it." My mum whispered, "Alison." And then you kicked out my child. I said, you suggested she goes to Ryan. You did it while I was away, so no, we're not starting over. My mum's face tightened. Please, she said, we made a mistake. You wrote it down, I said. You meant it enough to put it on paper. My dad put a hand on her arm and pulled her back slightly. They stood there for a second longer, like they were waiting for me to change my mind. I didn't. They left. And I closed the door. About a year later, it's over. Not emotionally, not in my head, but on paper. All the hearings, all the paperwork, all the arguing, done. Ella and I are in the house now, not visiting, not temporarily, not paying anyone for the privilege of breathing in our own living room. It's just home, our home. I have no contact with my parents, completely. No calls, no texts, nothing. And I don't take a break from it on holidays. I don't do check-ins. I don't do just one message. I barely talk to Nicole either. She still says she didn't know anything. And maybe she didn't. I honestly go back and forth on that. Because she still talks to mum and dad. She still drops little lines like, they're still our parents, like that is supposed to settle it. And I just nod. And I keep distance. Ella is the biggest change. She's lighter now. Not in a loud, jumpy way. In a quiet way. Like she finally believes she is allowed to take up space. She laughs more. She doesn't flinch when her phone rings. She doesn't brace herself before walking into a room. She doesn't second guess whether she's welcome. So you tell me, was I too harsh because they're my parents? Or did they stop being my parents the moment they tried to throw my child out? Thank you so much. I'm the writer. I have written this story. I hope you enjoyed it. If you would like to support us, check out our Patreon. That really helps us write more stories. I'll see you in the next one.
Hey, quick welcome. This is an original Tales First story, and today we're jumping right into it.
My 8-year-old adoptive daughter wrote a poem for my father's 60th birthday about love for her new family. My dad snatched her card and barked, "We'll never be your family. I wish you'd stayed in the orphanage." I didn't shout. I stood up and said this. The room went silent. 2 nights before my dad's 60th birthday, Olivia took over our kitchen table like it was her office. She had lined paper, a purple glitter pen, and a little pile of crumpled drafts that looked like snowballs. "Read the new one?" she asked, holding the page with both hands so it wouldn't shake. I listened while she tried to make the words sound grown up. Then she frowned and scratched out a whole line. "No, that part sounds fake." She stared at me hard. "Does Grandpa hate fake?" I kept my voice steady. "Grandpa likes the truth." She nodded like that solved everything and started rewriting again. After a few minutes, she slid the page back to me. "I put family in it," she said quietly. "Is that allowed?" I looked at her little jaw set like she was bracing for a no. "It's allowed," I told her. "It's true." She exhaled like she'd been holding her breath all week, then whispered, "I just want him to know I'm good." She was trying to earn a place she already had. Saturday afternoon in Columbus, my dad's house smelled like sheet cake and lemon cleaner, and the living room was crowded with balloons that said 60 in gold. My sister, Melissa, had already parked herself by the couch with her kids, Evan, 9, and Sophie, 7, like she owned the best seats. Dad was in his recliner, grinning at them like they were the whole show. Evan handed him a gift bag and Dad boomed, "That's my boy!" Sophie climbed right onto his knee and he kissed the top of her head. Olivia stood beside me with her handmade card pressed to her chest, waiting for someone to notice she existed. Melissa glanced at her and smiled the way you smile at a cashier. "Hey, Olivia," she said, then turned back to her kids. Dad gave Olivia a quick nod. Polite. Nothing warm. "Hello." When it was time for cards, Olivia stepped forward, cheeks pink, and cleared her throat. "I wrote something," she said, and her eyes flicked to me for permission. I nodded. She read in a soft, careful voice. "Dear Grandpa, you're 60. That's big and true. You tell stories and fix things and make pancakes too. I didn't have a grandpa before, but now I do. Thank you for my new family. I love you." Dad's smile tightened like someone pulled a string behind it, and he didn't clap. For half a second after Olivia finished, the room stayed quiet like it was waiting for an adult to tell it what to do next. Olivia held out the card with both hands, the way she'd practiced, her eyes wide and hopeful. Dad leaned forward, took the card, too fast, too sharp, and his face went sour. He didn't read it again. He snapped it right out of her hands and barked, "We'll never be your family. I wish you'd stayed in the orphanage." Then he tossed the card onto the coffee table. The words hit the room like a dropped plate, loud, final, impossible to pretend you didn't hear. Olivia's mouth opened, but no sound came at first. Then her face crumpled and the crying started. The kind that's more air than voice because the body can't figure out how to breathe. Melissa stared at her lap. Evan looked at the TV like it might rescue him. Sophie slid off Dad's knee and froze. Dad sat back like he'd just said the weather, like he'd done a favor by being honest. Nobody moved, so I did. I was already beside Olivia before my brain caught up. I wrapped my arms around her and pulled her against me, her little shoulders shaking like she'd been dropped into cold water. "Hey," I said low, right into her hair. "Look at me. You're okay." She tried to wipe her face with her sleeve and choked out, "I'm sorry. I'll fix it." That sentence made something harden in my chest. 8 years old, and her first instinct was to make herself smaller so the room would feel comfortable again. Dad cleared his throat like her crying was inconvenient. Melissa finally murmured, "Dad?" But it came out thin, like she was worried about his feelings more than Olivia's. Dad waved a hand. "Don't start," he said. "She needs to understand reality." Olivia clung tighter to my shirt and whispered, "I won't call him Grandpa anymore." I held her and stared straight at my father, and I could feel exactly how alone she was in that room. Her tears soaked through my sleeve. Dad shifted in his recliner and tried to smooth his face into something that could pass as reasonable. "Listen," he said, leaning forward like he was about to give a speech. "I didn't mean to upset her. But I'm not going to lie. I'm tired of everyone expecting me to pretend." I didn't answer yet. I kept my hand on Olivia's back, slow circles because she was still shaking. Dad kept talking anyway. "She's been here what, 6 months? That's not family. That's a situation. It takes time." He nodded at the card like it was evidence. "And all this talk about love? It feels rehearsed. It feels fake. She should wait until she actually means it." Olivia lifted her head just enough to hear that word, fake, and she flinched like she'd been slapped. Dad added, almost kindly, "It's not personal. It's just honesty. People need honesty." Melissa let out a little laugh like she was trying to lighten it. Okay, Dad. Let's just..." But Dad wasn't looking for lighter. He was looking for permission. His apology had teeth. Dad reached for the cake knife like that could reset the room. "Let's move on," he said, too brisk. "It's my birthday. We're not turning this into drama." Olivia's face was still wet against my shoulder, and my stomach felt strangely calm, like something had clicked into place. I stood up slowly with Olivia still pressed to me. Everyone's eyes tracked me like I'd become the new problem. Dad looked relieved, like he assumed I was going to do what I always did. Make it smooth, make it quiet, make it okay. I looked at him and said, very evenly, "Since everyone here loves honesty so much." The words landed and the room went still, even the kids. Melissa's smile slipped. Dad's eyebrows lifted, like he didn't recognize my tone. I kept Olivia tucked against my side, picked up her little jacket from the chair, and reached for my purse. Dad opened his mouth, but nothing came out fast enough. And that's when I stood up. Olivia was silent in the back seat on the drive home, her sneakers tucked under her like she was trying to take up less space. The streetlights flashed across her face in the rearview mirror, and every time they did, I saw her swallow hard like she was holding her crying in with her throat. "Mom?" she finally whispered, like she wasn't sure she was allowed to use that word anymore. "Did I do something bad?" My hands tightened on the steering wheel. I kept my voice low and steady. "No, you did something brave. You wrote the truth." She stared out the window. He said I should have stayed." She couldn't finish it. I didn't fill in the sentence for her. I just said, "He was wrong." And I meant it in the plainest way, like stating a fact. At the next red light, I reached back and let her hold 2 of my fingers. She grabbed them like a lifeline. As I drove, the shock started turning into something sharper, and I realized this wasn't just about one ugly moment. It was about a pattern I'd been trained to survive. Because my father didn't wake up cruel that day. When I was 10, my mom died, and the house went quiet in a way that never fully lifted. My sister Melissa was 7, small enough that people still called her the baby, and my dad's grief turned into rules. The first rule was unspoken. Melissa needed protecting. The second rule was said out loud. I needed to help. The morning of my mom's funeral, Dad stood in the hallway with a black tie in his hands and looked right past my face. "Kate," he said, "get your sister dressed. Make sure she eats something." Melissa sat on the couch, wrapped in a blanket, while relatives stroked her hair and told her she was so strong. No one told me anything except what needed doing. That became the rhythm. Melissa forgot homework. I drove it over. Melissa didn't want to do dishes, Dad said. "Kate, just handle it." When I complained, he'd sigh like I was making his life harder. "Be mature," he'd say. "Don't add to my stress." I learned to cook because nobody else was going to. I learned to swallow words because they didn't change outcomes. I became the helper, not the kid. By the time we were adults, Melissa had a husband, 2 kids, and the kind of confidence that comes from always being caught when you fall. Dad adored being a grandpa to Evan and Sophie. He coached Evan's little league, showed up to Sophie's dance recitals with flowers, and kept framed school photos on his mantle like trophies. I lived across town and worked full-time, but Sundays were still family day. That meant Melissa dropped her kids off with me for a couple of hours that turned into the whole afternoon. I'd take them to Dad's, cook, and supervise while he hosted the big Sunday dinner without actually cooking or watching anyone. He'd call it tradition. "Family takes care of family," he'd say, and everyone acted like that sentence was a gift instead of a demand. When Dad's mortgage payment went up a few years back, he called me late at night. "I don't want to worry your sister," he said. She has her own expenses. Then he paused, like he was waiting for my old training to kick in. It did. I set up a $550 auto payment without even telling Melissa. It felt easier than arguing. It felt like being the mature one again. In our family, love came with an invoice. My husband, Alex, met my dad in person exactly twice before the Army sent him overseas again. Alex is a doctor, smart, steady, the kind of man who doesn't raise his voice because he doesn't need to. We tried for kids for years, through appointments and tests, and that slow monthly disappointment that makes you count time differently. One night, after another call with a fertility specialist, Alex sat on a video call from a base clinic half a world away. His scrubs looked wrinkled and his eyes were tired, but his voice was clear. "Kate," he said, "I don't want our life to be a waiting room." I laughed once, sharp and bitter, then stopped because it wasn't funny. I wanted it to happen the normal way, I admitted. He nodded. "Normal isn't guaranteed. Love is a choice." Then he said, "Let's adopt." Like it was the simplest decision in the world. The next day, I printed forms and made a list and took a deep breath, because we weren't choosing easy. We were choosing ours. We chose the hard yes. I met Olivia in a beige office with a box of tissues on the table and a toy bin in the corner. She was sitting with her knees pulled up, clutching a stuffed fox that had one ear bent. Her hair was in 2 neat braids, and her eyes tracked everything like she was measuring the room for exits. When the caseworker introduced us, Olivia didn't smile. She just looked at me, serious, like she was studying whether I meant what I said. I knelt down so I wasn't towering over her. "Hi," I told her. "I'm Kate." She didn't say her name at first. She just whispered, "Do you have rules?" I answered honestly, "Yes, but we talk about them." The first night she slept at our house, she lined up her shoes by the door. The second night, she asked if she was allowed to open the fridge. By the third week, she was correcting me if I called her Sweetie instead of Olivia, because she wanted her name used right. At month 4, she slipped and called me Mom in the grocery store, then froze like she'd broken a law. I just said, "Yep, that's me," and kept walking so she didn't have to feel embarrassed. 6 months in, we were buried in adoption paperwork. The court date was still months away, and she was writing poems to belong. My dad hated the idea from the start, and he called it honesty, like that made it noble. When I told him we were adopting, he didn't ask about Olivia. He asked, "Why would you do that to yourself?" "She's a child," I said. "Not a punishment." He scoffed. "You're bringing a stranger into your house. If you can't have kids naturally, maybe that's your sign. Just don't have children." Then he added the part he knew would land. "And your husband is gone all the time. You're basically a single mom. This is a bad idea." Alex, listening on speaker from overseas, kept his voice even. "Sir, we're excited." Dad replied, "Don't sir me. You don't understand this family." Then Dad told me, "Don't expect me to play Grandpa. Don't push it." I still invited him to his own birthday party with Olivia there, because part of me kept hoping time would soften him. I walked into that party still trying to win his approval. Back in my dad's living room, Olivia's crying had gone quieter, like she was running out of energy to be hurt. Dad reached for the cake again, pretending this was all a small bump. Melissa hovered by the kitchen doorway, eyes darting between us like she wanted someone else to fix it. I kept Olivia tucked against my side and faced my father. "Since everyone loves honesty that much here," I said, calm enough that it didn't sound like a threat, "I'm going to be honest too. Dad leaned back, almost smug, like he thought I was about to apologize for making a scene. I didn't. Olivia is my daughter, I said, slow and clear. I love her more than anything. And if you don't see her as family, then I'm no longer your family either. The words didn't shake. They just sat there, heavy, undeniable. Melissa's mouth opened. Kate! I cut her off without raising my voice. Not today. Evan stared at the floor. Sophie looked like she might cry too. Dad's face went blank for a second, like he couldn't compute a boundary that didn't bend for him. I picked up Olivia's card from the coffee table, creased now from his hand, and tucked it into my purse like it was evidence. Then I walked out with my daughter, and no one followed. The door closed behind us like a decision. At home, I got Olivia into pajamas and made her a mug of warm milk with honey, the way my mom used to do before she got sick. Olivia sat at the edge of her bed, twisting the hem of her shirt. Her cheeks were blotchy, but her voice was careful. Did I break your family? She asked. Because if I did, I can fix it. I can say sorry. I can never write poems again. She swallowed and stared at her hands. If poems make people mad, I don't want poems. I sat beside her and kept my tone steady. You didn't break anything, I said. Adults are responsible for adult choices. She shook her head, small and fierce. But he said I shouldn't have been here. He said I should have stayed where I was. Her eyes went wet again. What if you change your mind? I took her hands and held them still. Olivia, I said, making her look at me. I have never been more sure about anything. You are my daughter. You are staying. I pointed to the little photo of us on her dresser, the one she picked out herself. That's us. That's real. She sniffed and whispered. Then my poem wasn't bad? I shook my head. Your poem was love. The problem was him. I tucked her card, the one with the poem, into my nightstand. After Olivia fell asleep, I didn't pour a glass of wine or rant to a friend. I sat at my laptop at the kitchen counter and opened my bank app like I was doing routine chores. The auto payment was there in black and white. $550 to my dad's mortgage account, scheduled like clockwork. I stared at it longer than I needed to. It hit me how many years I'd been quietly holding up his independence while he talked down to my choices. Family to him meant access and control. It meant I paid and stayed quiet. I clicked into the payment details and hit cancel. The app asked, "Are you sure?" Like it was a big dramatic thing. I was sure. I turned off the recurring transfer and watched the confirmation pop up. No fireworks, no sirens, just a line of text saying it wouldn't happen again. Then I made a new transfer, $550 into a savings account labeled adoption fees, because that money belonged to Olivia's future, not my dad's comfort. I closed the laptop, washed one mug in the sink, and went to bed. The $550 leash snapped quietly. Sunday mornings used to be automatic. Melissa would text "on my way" like it was a schedule I'd agreed to forever, and the kids would show up with backpacks and tablets and no real plan. That week, I woke up, made pancakes for Olivia, and let the house stay calm. At 9:07 a.m., Melissa texted, "Be there in 20. We're doing brunch after." I stared at it while Olivia colored at the table, humming like nothing could touch her in this moment. My hands wanted to do the old thing, smooth, accommodate, keep the peace. Instead, I typed, "We're not doing Sundays anymore. Please make other childcare plans." I reread it once to make sure it was factual, not emotional, then hit send. The response came fast. "Are you kidding? Dad already feels bad. Then, we have plans. Then, so you're punishing the kids now? I didn't argue with the texts. I just put my phone face down and helped Olivia find the blue crayon she couldn't locate. A boundary doesn't need a speech. It needs consistency. My calendar finally belonged to us. Melissa called 5 minutes later. I let it ring twice, then answered because I wanted her to hear my voice, not my typing. "Kate," she snapped. "What is wrong with you?" I kept my voice even. "I'm not babysitting today." She made a frustrated noise. "Dad said something stupid. He's old. He apologized." I didn't correct her because we both knew he hadn't apologized in any real way. Melissa pushed on. "My kids love you. You can't just blow up everyone's life because you're sensitive." "I'm not blowing up anything," I said. "I'm protecting my daughter." She scoffed. "Protecting her from what? A comment?" Then she lowered her voice like she was being reasonable. "Kate, you're making it weird. We're family. You can't just—" I cut in, still calm. "I can. And I am." She started to talk over me, faster, louder. "So what? You're going to keep her from Dad forever? That's insane. And what about me? What am I supposed to do today?" "You're supposed to parent," I said, and I hated that I had to say it. There was a pause, then her tone turned icy. "Wow, you've really changed." "I have," I agreed, and ended the call. I hung up before she could rewrite my no. My dad didn't call at first. He texted like a man who assumed money was a button he could push. "Kate, the mortgage draft didn't go through. Fix it tonight." No hello. No mention of Olivia. Just an order. I stared at the message until my jaw unclenched. Then I replied, "I canceled the payment. I won't be supporting your mortgage anymore." I waited, and the typing bubbles popped up like a pulse. His response? "Unbelievable. After everything I did for you." Then, "You're letting your feelings control you." Then, the one that made my stomach go cold. "Don't act like that girl is your family yet. It's not final. You're embarrassing yourself." There it was. He'd found a way to make Olivia temporary again, to make my motherhood conditional. He'd said it like it was a technicality, like paperwork could erase bedtime stories and lunches packed and nightmares soothed. I typed one line back. "Do not speak about my daughter again." I walked out of the office, unblocked my dad's number, and called straight to voicemail. Not as a punishment, as a safety measure. He tried to use paperwork as a weapon. Once you set a boundary, the people who benefited from you having none will start recruiting. The calls came from relatives I hadn't heard from in months, an aunt, a cousin, my dad's friend from his bowling league. Each one started with the same script. "He's your father, and family is family, and you'll regret this." I didn't yell. I didn't cry on the phone. I kept it simple. "He told my child she should have stayed in an orphanage," I said. "I'm not discussing this." My aunt sighed like I was being dramatic. "He didn't mean it like that. He's just old-fashioned." My cousin tried another angle. "Blood matters, Kate. You know that." Then she added, like she was offering a solution, "If this is too stressful, maybe you can reconsider. Maybe she'd be better somewhere else." That sentence made everything go quiet inside me. Not rage, not panic, just clarity. "Don't ever suggest that again," I said, voice flat. "She is my daughter. She is not a trial run. If you can't respect that, you don't get access to us either." There was a stammered apology, but it was too late. I ended the call and blocked the number. Then I did the same to 2 more people without debating myself. I got very calm and very done. A month passed, and our life started to feel like ours again. Olivia stopped watching my face every time the phone buzzed. She started leaving her shoes wherever she felt like instead of lining them up by the door. On Sunday mornings, we went to the library and picked out picture books and one poetry book with a bright yellow cover that she carried like a trophy. Alex called from overseas whenever he could, and instead of me saying, "It's fine," I told him the truth. "It's quiet," I said. "It's better." He didn't ask me to keep the peace. He asked, "What do you need?" Sometimes I needed him to just listen. Sometimes I needed him to email the adoption worker so I didn't have to handle everything alone. One night, Olivia pulled her card back out, creased and smudged, and taped the poem onto the fridge with a magnet shaped like a strawberry. "It's still true," she said simply. I nodded. "It is." I thought the silence meant the message had landed. The quiet held, until it didn't. It was a Tuesday afternoon when everything snapped again. I pulled into the pickup line at Olivia's elementary school, like I always did, and waited for her to come bouncing out with her backpack too big for her shoulders. 10 minutes passed. 20. No Olivia. I parked and went to the front office, trying to keep my face calm because kids can smell panic. The secretary smiled politely. "Oh, Olivia was picked up," she said. "Her grandfather came in early." My brain stalled. "Excuse me?" I heard myself say. She pointed at a clipboard. "He signed her out. It's fine. He's on her approved list." My hands went cold as I looked down and saw my father's name in my own handwriting from months ago, back when I still believed he'd eventually be decent, and before it even occurred to me to update the school pickup list. I forced air into my lungs. "What time did he take her?" The secretary answered, cheerful, unaware. "About 15 minutes ago." 15 minutes could be anywhere. I swallowed hard and said, "Remove him. Right now. He is not allowed." My voice must have done something because her smile faded. She nodded quickly and started clicking at her computer. I walked out of the office and tried my dad anyway, straight to voicemail. I called Melissa. No answer. I called Alex, and the second he picked up, I said, "He took her from school." Alex didn't ask questions. He just said, "Drive. I'm staying on the line." I drove like every red light was personal. My dad's driveway was full when I pulled up. Melissa's SUV, my dad's sedan, 2 kids' bikes tossed on the lawn. I didn't knock politely. I rang the bell once and opened the door when Melissa called, "It's open!" like this was a normal visit. Melissa appeared in the hallway, eyebrows already lifted like she was ready to scold me. "Kate, what are you doing?" I walked past her without touching her and went straight to the living room. Olivia was on the carpet, sitting stiff with her hands in her lap. My dad was on the couch, rolling a rubber ball toward her like he was trying to create a wholesome scene. "Come on, sweetheart," he was saying, voice syrupy. "Grandpa's just playing." Olivia didn't reach for the ball. Her eyes flicked up to me, wide and shiny, and her whole body shifted like she'd been holding still on purpose. The second she saw me, she stood fast and crossed the room in 3 steps. She grabbed my hand and pressed her face into my side like she needed to be sure I was real. I put my arm around her shoulders and felt how tense she was, like she'd turned into a wire. They had my daughter in their living room. I didn't scream. I didn't curse. I looked at my father and said, very clearly, "You took my child from school without telling me." My voice sounded like paperwork, flat, official. Alex's voice was still in my ear through my phone, quiet and controlled. Dad lifted his hands like he was calming a situation he'd created. "Kate, relax. I'm trying to make things right," he said. "I decided I'm ready to be her grandfather now." He smiled at Olivia like he expected gratitude. "See? No hard feelings." Olivia's grip tightened on my fingers. I angled my body so I was between her and him. "You don't get to be ready by taking her," I said. Melissa rolled her eyes. "Oh my God, Kate. He picked her up. It's not like he—" "Stop," I cut in, still calm. "You do not take my child. Ever." Dad's smile twitched. "I was going to call you. I just thought you'd cooled off by now, and I needed to get back to normal." He glanced at me, and the mask slipped for half a second. "You can't just cut off the mortgage payment and—" There it was. Not Olivia's feelings, not the orphanage comment. Normal to him meant money flowing and me obeying. I nodded once, like something had been confirmed. "That's why you won't have access to her," I said. "You don't love her. You want leverage." I took Olivia's backpack from the chair, held her hand, and walked out. Behind me, Dad called, "Kate!" like my name was a remote control. It didn't work. Normal was over, and he knew it. 6 months later, we sat in a small courthouse room while an adoption judge smiled at Olivia like she'd been waiting for her. Alex was beside me in a suit that still looked strange on him after all those uniforms, because he'd resigned from his overseas posting and taken a local doctor job so he could be home. Olivia wore a simple dress and held the same stuffed fox, the bent ear now stitched back up because she'd asked Alex to fix it like a real doctor. The judge asked Olivia if she understood what today meant. Olivia nodded hard. "It means I'm staying," she said, then glanced at me. "Forever?" The judge laughed softly and stamped the papers, and that sound, ink meeting official paper, felt like a door locking from the inside. At home, Olivia still writes poems. She writes them about pancakes and school buses and our dog's weird habit of stealing socks. Sometimes she writes about family, and the word doesn't sound dangerous anymore. I haven't spoken to my dad or Melissa since the day they took Olivia from school. I heard through a relative I hadn't blocked that Dad had to downsize and cancel a couple trips he'd been planning, and now he complains about me to anyone who will listen. That's fine. Complaints don't reach my front porch anymore. So tell me, was I right to cut them off? Or would you ever try reconnecting after something like that? Let me know in the comments and subscribe for more.